in Ravio.com.
And welcome to a very special edition. Well, every edition of Nerdgasm is very special, otherwise you're going to tune out. Welcome to the special horror edition of Nerdgasm, where I picked 4 individual horror films that I think are worth discussing, films that we all had strong reactions to. To my left is Joe Winchell, future star of Fear the Reaper.
One day.
And Hooligans. And to my right is, I like to call her Nelly Nells.
I just call her Nelly.
Well, she goes by the name of Nelly Nells.
I do go by Nelly Nells.
We got to be accurate to her moniker on Facebook. How are you doing tonight, Nelly?
I'm very well. I'm happy to be back. I'm excited for this horror edition.
That's right.
I can't wait to rip apart the movies that you love.
Oh my God. Do you know why you got chosen to be on tonight?
Why?
Because Tim wasn't available.
You're the only person I asked who's seen all 4 movies. That makes you on tonight's episode.
All right.
So, I have a fascination, I guess, with horror in general. When I was a young kid, I think my favorite part of the amusement park was the haunted house. So I was like 5 years old. I was taken to like a local carnival, and the haunted house like terrified me. And I would take like a couple steps in, and like little by little, I'm getting drawn into this thing. I was so terrified, but at the same time, I love the experience. I couldn't even make it to the end of the haunted house. I ran out. I got the money back. But still, like to this day, it's something that's like fascinating me. And The Shining was probably the first horror film that I saw, and when it was replayed on like local television affiliate, terrified, at least certainly at that age, terrified me to death. But still could not get enough of it. What was your first? I don't know who to ask first. All right.
Pick
Nelly.
One.
So Joe? What was your first experience, with horror, with the haunted house experience and all that?
It goes down to 2 things. I never had older brothers, but I had older cousins. So they used to, when I was like 6 or 10, they used to show me horror films. They would scare the crap out of me, and I think I was very scared of them as a kid. I think that experience made me numb to a lot of horror. So I can watch a lot of stuff and like I know that it's scary, but I don't get scared anymore by it. And then the other thing that I remember, I was like 10 years old, and there was like a haunted hayride, and I remember the exact moment. I only saw probably like the first like 3 minutes of the ride because I got so scared out of my mind. I just buried my face in my mom's lap. Is when I remember going on the haunted hayride, and the first thing was this old man saying, "Get off my land," and he kept hitting the cart with this big steel beam. And then after that, a guy with a chainsaw like ran at us over our heads, and all I could think about was, I don't want to be here anymore. And I just shoved my face in my mom's lap.
You know, what's funny?
Until it was over, I didn't look at anything else from it. I just.
What's funny is if we were to look back at what terrified us then, you'd be like, "Oh my God."
Well, now, yeah, but I was 10.
I know, but I was 6 years old, and this thing, I'm sure, in my memory, was absolutely horrifying. But if I were to look at it, it'd be a whole different world. Now, Nelly, speaking of haunted hayrides, I could have sworn you said something out in the parking lot here that sounded really awful for any human being of any human nature experience.
I was about 10 years old, and I was doing a haunted hayride out in Mount Sinai. And as we're driving through, you go under this big, huge tree, and these bodies start falling out of the tree. Apparently, they're supposed to have hooks on their back, and the one guy didn't. So he actually hung himself in front of the entire hayride. We didn't really know
Did he get
until the
workman's
end.
comp? His family get compensated?
Ha ha ha. Yeah, we didn't really know until the end.
When
But
they
just
announced
knowing
it
that
to
we
you?
watched someone die with the craziest
Someone really
thing.
died in this. Jesus.
You sure it wasn't just like, part of the, it was definitely not part of the act. It was definitely, because you were young
Well,
then. You
they
might have
brought
fallen.
ambulances. And
It was all part of the
just
act.
all
Yeah,
kinds of
very elaborate,
police. We had to do
very elaborate.
interviews.
Did you do interviews?
Yeah.
That's the best haunted house ever right there.
We had to get interviewed by
It's
the
all, I
police.
find that it's all an act, right?
Yeah.
It's
That's
like the David
horrifying.
Fincher movie, The Game, where it was like completely set up. I mean, that is just the most elaborate haunted house. Nelly, that sounded awful. I cannot believe no child.
How did you respond to that? When you, how old were you?
I was probably about 10 or 11.
10 or 11?
Yeah.
How were you like, I saw somebody die? Did you know who it was?
No, I didn't know the person
So you-
personally.
all right. Well, I mean, like, did you like know which one? The bodies kept falling out of trees.
Well, yeah, I figured out that was the one,
one who went
that was
limp?
really.
That was, yeah, he's a really good actor.
Yeah, like I thought he was
I
really
really
good.
believe he was dead.
The one that didn't bounce.
Oh, I'm going to hell.
Wow. So, before we get into the horror segment of the show, we should be having Jerry Horror calling in the near future with his
Eventually.
thoughts on tonight's four movies: House of Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, Hellraiser, and The Shining. But before we get into that, we all saw here the preview for the new Batman game. And Joe here is probably as big and loyal of a Batman fan as there is on this planet. So I had to get his 2 cents on how this game looks. And I saw the trailer.
No.
I haven't played these games, but just the
Should.
trailer alone. Yeah.
I'm convinced you could show like the Arkham series so far to non-gamer, and they'd be like, "This."
They'll
awesome.
want to play it.
They'll want to play it.
You feel like you are Batman.
That's exactly the whole. Like, I've been waiting for this Batman game my entire life. When like Arkham Asylum came out, I was like, "Oh, like, it was great."
You had a nerdgasm.
Basically. Because I remember playing the demo for the first game, and the fighting system was like spot on, exactly what you wanted, like, and it was great. And they just continued to get better, and now they are finally finishing out the series, the Rocksteady series of the Arkham series with a game called Arkham Knight is the new title of the new Batman game. And they haven't released a gameplay trailer. This is a kind of like when they release a trailer for a movie, they release a trailer. That's a trailer. It's not actual gameplay footage. It's a trailer to be a trailer. So they, but they used obviously the software that they're going to use to render the actual game graphics, and it looks pretty impressive. It looks amazing. It's awesome. It's very cinematic. You've got there's so much chaos in Gotham, and it keeps breaking to shots of Bruce Wayne getting ready to, getting suited up and everything. And it's got a monologue from his father reading his last will and testament, saying about his son, saying, "I leave all of my wares to my son Bruce, and please don't." It's actually kind of funny because he says, Don't blow this money on flashy cars," and it cuts to that.
Right.
But it basically says do this to inspire, something good, something right, something righteous, and it cuts to him flying down the street in the Batmobile as the Two-Face gang is just lighting up the street, and then Two-Face turns around and sees the Batmobile, and he starts fighting at it, Batman flies at it. It's awesome. It's
And
great.
it does seem like it's very much cut from and I'm assuming all these games are, from the Nolan approach of visual.
It's like 50-50. Yeah, and I do agree with you on that. It's got that Nolan-esque feel to it, but it feels more than that. There's they've taken like notes from Nolan with the way the environment looks, and kind of they've instilled that real world. Even though it's very much a comic book game, they've instilled a real world element into it, especially with the last two. With Arkham Origins and Arkham City, they tried not to make it too cartoony. They were like, no, we're going to put a little bit of realism in this, especially with the last game.
Oh, definitely.
With the prison
it got more
riot
gritty.
thing. That is very gritty. So it's more of a real world feel with this Batman, and that would be the Nolan-esque touch, I would say.
And they also show Penguin. You know, if Nolan were to conceptualize the
third time they've had the Penguin in the game, and it's my favorite incarnation of the Penguin ever.
Yes, it was amazing in the Penguin.
I think that should be, if they ever do the Penguin in a movie again, screw that Danny DeVito stuff. It's got to be this version of it, because that's how I see the character.
Is it pretty much they take the approach of him being a mob boss kind of thing?
That's what he is, though.
That's what he's a mob
and that's
boss.
why the character worked. But this game is going to be a lot. It's going to be a big open world. You're finally going to get that feel of an open world Batman game where you have Gotham at your fingertips and you're going to fly around, and you will actually be able to, for the first time, drive. Who's that? Is that Missy Heather?
Yeah, Missy Heather was harkening back to what Nelly said about the haunted house, and she said that unfortunately it's more common than you think, Nelly. A 17-year-old in Lakewood accidentally hung himself at a hayride.
Back to what I said, she digs the new game.
Right.
But they're going to have a fully open world. It's finally Gotham, fully open world, which means, if you know what that means, Dave, like open world game or anything like that?
No.
Open world game essentially means like you have a storyline, but you can interact with an active 3D environment, and you can just interact with everything. So in a Batman game, that's very key because you'll be able to fly around Gotham. I assume there'll be crimes that you can stop, like they'll pop up on your radar, and you'll finally be able to. And the big thing, I think the big selling point for this game is you'll finally be able to drive the Batmobile.
Which is going to be amazing.
Now, I'm really seriously wondering if it's going to be like, can I just call this thing whatever I want? Or is it going to be parked somewhere?
Fast travel?
Fast travel, just give me the car, I want to drive it.
I know, but like your fast travel, you call up your Batman.
Yeah, of course. And I want to see like how is that going to play in? They said the car is going to be a big part of the game, and I think good because it's Gotham City was always going to be a huge world. Like Arkham Origins was a huge map. Arkham City was a huge map. They said this is going to be as big as both of them because it's going to be the entire city of Gotham. So that's what we're getting from this game. We're going to get a fully open world Gotham. We're going to get to drive the Batmobile, and yet. If anybody, spoilers, if you haven't played the game, play it, I don't care. The Arkham City game ended with the death of the Joker. So we don't have...
What?
It was well done. Everybody was like, you must be pissed. And I'm like, it was so beautiful. It was really beautiful. And it was a bold choice. So who's going to be your centerized villain in this one? Maybe it'll be a Ra's al Ghul. Maybe it'll be Two-Face this time, because I've always liked the character Two-Face. You know, maybe they'll find a way to bring the guy back. It's comic books. God knows there's a Lazarus pit. Maybe they threw him in. It doesn't matter, but I'm curious to see who the centralized villain will be in this one. They've always kind of, and they did it really well in Arkham Origins, where they went one way, and then they brought another way, and they brought two great villains together.
It was perfect.
Yeah, and it was a really good storyline.
What was your favorite of this trilogy? I guess it's been 3 games so far, but what was your favorite between the two?
Mine's Arkham City.
Asylum. Mine's Asylum.
Yours Asylum, the first one? I love the first one.
But it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
It blew open the doors of Batman.
As far as like a Batman gameplay that I love Arkham Asylum. I always felt a little bit too boxed in it though. Arkham City was like, I'm flying around, I can go from building to building.
Yeah, but see, for me, sometimes that whole, like, too big of an open world I get distracted. I have game ADD period end of sentence. So I get lost sometimes.
Is that Heather Tinian in the chat room? Where we have like a bunch of Heathers in the chat room tonight?
How many
I only see one.
You should get all the Heathers on.
Right, and it should just be them.
We just review
Heathers?
Or reenact
about
Heathers.
that.
Reenact Heathers with all the
Do
Heathers.
the whole movie?
Yeah.
And you play
Dave,
Winona.
no, you're going to be Christian Slater.
All right. So I think it is time that we get into the horror portion of the show. After all, this is
Nerdgasm. It's not horror.
This is but I'll tell you what. I'm gonna mix with the script. You see, this is the script that I write out, and you know what? I'm changing the order today. So Matt, in control room, can we put on our nerd girl our nerd news girl for today.
Matt in the control is cursing your name, Dave.
Yes, I hear him.
And that makes things go a little out of order, but because we're waiting for Jerry to call in right now, I think I would like to start with fun facts about the 4 films that we're covering today.
That sounds reasonable.
Hi, my name is Audrey Rose, and here's some fun facts about some fun movies.
It's a nice tattoo you got.
Oh, thanks. That's my cat. According to Shelley Duvall, the infamous Here's Johnny scene took 3 days to film and the use of 60 doors.
Here's Johnny!
Universal Pictures refused to release the film, believing it would be given an NC-17 rating by the MPAA.
House of Thousand Corpses or Devil's Rejects? Which one did you like better?
I really like Devil's Rejects. I mean, I like House of Thousand Corpses, but Devil's Rejects, it was a good, like, wait time. Bill Moseley, Otis actually shaved his head so his lace wig would fit properly.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Doug Bradley was originally offered a choice of roles between a mattress mover and Pinhead. He almost accepted the mattress mover role instead.
The mattress mover would not have made anywhere as cool of a horror icon.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Is Hellraiser the inspiration as far as why you're into the piercing and the tattoos? This was your introduction?
Yeah, I mean, I love Hellraiser. I just love the blood of the whole entire movie.
So you're really a romantic at heart.
My heart.
Where'd you find that girl?
It's Audrey, you know? She's a staple.
Yeah, Audrey.
She's a staple.
We all know Audrey.
You don't know Audrey? Okay,
I don't know Audrey. You're just like, it's Audrey. I'm like, oh, Audrey.
If you want to be pierced or tattooed, you go to Audrey.
Is she a tattoo artist?
She's all the above. She's really cool.
You're
So
being
she's
very vague with your answers right now.
Because I don't really know her that well. So I don't have to.
Could you throw some poor girl off the side of a cop? Hey, come here, want to be in a movie? Like,
You know, once Nelly, that's pretty much how it works, isn't it?
Kinda.
this was Dave's
It's
10th
kind of
choice.
his MO. He met me at a
What,
party. He was
stalking
like,
girls
hey,
and-
you want to be on my show?
No,
kinda
but
like
I
that.
don't come off creepy about it.
Yeah, he didn't tell me it was in a basement. Wow.
Really, Nelly? Really? That's the direction we're going.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, too bad.
I'm
it's not-
sorry. You really just you stepped right into that one.
So, oh yeah, we had Cute Kids was another one of our nerd news girls. So they know the process. I'm not like it's never Chris Shady. I just say, hey, I want to put you on camera for my show. Meet me at my place at midnight, right? So let's start things off with Hellraiser.
Yeah, let's.
So now Hellraiser is a film that I just saw recently.
For the first time?
Yeah, you know,
Really?
somewhere in the last 3-4 months, and it was the first time I.
Was that when you bought some? Didn't you buy like some box set with all the? Or you showed me something.
Yeah, no, I got a 4-pack
That's
of,
what it was,
of
yeah,
Hellraiser
yeah.
movies. I've still only watched one of them, so
The second one was good. I like the second one.
I have it. I have the second one at home. I have the second
You should
one.
watch
At
the
home.
second one too. But continue.
So Hellraiser, like, I was familiar with this film for a long time. I'd seen the promos, the trailers. It looked like a straight horror film that was like, like there wouldn't be any humor. It was gonna be bleak. It's based on the Clive Barker work.
He wrote it.
Yes.
Right. The book
Yeah.
was, I guess the book
It's
was,
not based on a book, is it?
I thought it was.
Yes.
It's based on the book?
Yes, it's
It is
based on the
book.
book,
I'm
yes.
not too familiar with the I've seen the movie. I'm not too familiar with the, story behind it. But I've seen the movie 1,000 times.
My impression is I thought it was going to be a much more serious horror film. Not to say that it's a comedy, but there's definitely a lot more camp to it than I anticipated. There's definitely parts, whether intentional or not, that come off a little sillier than I.
I think I think that has to do with also that we had this conversation earlier in the day about how number one, I think that was also a product of the time. It had to do with the time it came
it's
out.
an 80s
It also
film.
it's a great horror film, but even there's aspects of it that seem a little bit dated, so they come off as humorous. And
For me, I don't enjoy that movie
You don't like that movie?
No.
Movie scares
It's
the
too
I'll
crap out
tear
of
your
me.
soul apart for saying that, Nelly.
That movie scares.
No,
matter?
it's
You
too
scared?
campy. I like the idea. Like they had the right premise. Like they were going the right way. I love the idea.
Well,
of the
definitely
whole
the
box
Pandora's, the
and
Pandora's
puzzle.
box
Right.
kind of thing.
I don't think you
Like
can
it.
mention horror without thinking about Hellraiser, though.
No, you can't. It's definitely an icon. I
What a
just
hell
don't
of a
think that's
title.
not for me.
What are you
Man,
going to
come on,
see?
it's a guy in a
I gotta
leather
pitch a movie
dress.
to you. Hellraiser.
I got a little fun story from growing up. My friends and I were driving along and saw some girls in the road.
Was she wearing a
So
leather
these
dress
girls
with
are
pins in her
waving
hair?
at us.
And this is when Dave's movies started being.
No. So my Cajun friend was saw the girls. Hey, I'd like to go back to a place and watch Hellraiser. It's like Hellraiser 2, Hellbound. I'm like, oh, that was great, Jeremy. You just terrified them.
Thank you, Tommy.
So Timmy.
Timmy or
So,
Tommy?
Based on
Why
Hellbound
is
Heart,
there so
Hellbound Heart, but it's definitely Pandora's box. Kind of done Clive Barker style. And then it obviously opened the door for a lot of different things. But you never. Pinhead was very much sort of like a Boba Fett type of icon because I'm sure they never anticipated that this guy would be
Take off the way it did.
Yeah,
did.
Because it's obviously a very
Cheesy
ineffective
looking
villain.
character.
Pinhead?
It's full of cheese. Yes. He looks like an alien with acupuncture needles in his face.
It's a
And he's wearing a
Cenobite.
leather dress.
He's a Cenobite.
WTF.
Well, he was pretty damn badass for a man wearing a leather belt.
No.
What
does that mean?
For acupuncture and
Rescue
wearing a
Tango
leather
Falcon?
dress.
Yes, that's exactly what it means.
No, but I think the combination of the voice, and all of the different things. I can't say that Hellraiser's not a particularly great film. So I'm not kidding.
It's dated. I think the movie is dated. I think the effects are astounding, and I think what made that movie.
cheesy.
It was made in
Even
the
for the
80s.
I know, but even for the time, that was my whole thing. It never scared me because it looked like cheese, like a big pile of it.
The visuals?
It never,
The
yeah, it
visuals?
never.
Visually,
scared me.
I think the
Freddy
movie's
Krueger
great.
scared me more than that. Nightmare on
Does it
Elm
not count
Street
for taste in the room,
right.
apparently? That's what
Saying scared the bejesus out of me. Pinhead.
there was something,
nothing.
it
Not even
hit
a quick
my
one.
sensibilities.
Yeah, I was the opposite. That movie scared the crap out of me the first time I saw Hellraiser. And I don't think it's the best, but I think it was so different from a lot of the other and I'm
was
not
definitely
saying
not,
it was
Friday
better. It
the
was different. It was
13th,
different than Friday the 13th. It was different than Nightmare on Elm Street. It was different than Halloween, and to an extent, it was darker. That movie to me was like, this pulls no punches. Like when people die, they die.
Right.
Like,
It was darker, but then, as I said, then they had all
Did you
that
ever see the
camp
second
in
one?
it, which made it too. It would have
Too
been
much?
better. Like I think it could have been a better movie.
Did you see the second one, or
Like
did you only
that,
see
I
the
would
first
love to
one?
see Hellraiser rebooted.
they
Somebody
tried to do
it.
that. Did you know
Somebody.
that?
No.
They did that. They recast Pinhead and everything. Awful.
In the chat room, we have Lockdown saying, to be fair, Clive Barker was animating the lighting effects at the end while he was drunk. I don't know whether that's true.
Here's
or
to
not.
Clive Barker. I didn't know that. Who said that? Timmy?
No, Lockdown said
Lockdown?
that.
Thank you, Lockdown.
Only Danny Trejo could look badass wearing a leather dress.
Agreed.
Very
Thank you, Will Ploy, NYC. So, I say, let's go the simple thumbs up, thumbs down on this. I'm going to give this. I was entertained by it, for its strong points, for its weak points. I just liked the film, and I haven't watched the second one. I watched the opening of the second one.
I like the
There's like
second one
nine
better than the first one.
And I mean, the opening's not so good. So I watched the opening and I keep procrastinating. Like, I'll watch this eventually. And it might have been that I just saw Hellraiser at the exact right time and I was in the right mood for it. But it's a cheesy. But the storyline is very classic. It feels like it's
As I said, I
tying
think the
into.
storyline is good.
Yeah,
like
it
I know
ties
where
into so
they were
many-
trying to go for it, but I don't feel like it got there.
All right, but I mean, I'll put it this way: it was not as strong as I thought it was, but it doesn't mean that it was bad. It's a horror film. I enjoy horror. I give it a thumbs up.
I get
I'm
it.
pretty sure. Okay.
I think it's she doesn't like it, whatever.
Yeah, that's your loss. You're just not as forgiving as horror. See, when you like horror, you get a little
I
forgiving
like horror.
sometimes.
I like horror a
You get
lot.
forgiving, and I got forgiving. You know what? We're going to go to a commercial break right now. And when we get back, we're going to begin a very in-depth discussion about The Shining. So stick around, join the conversation, call in. We're going to get, we'll take any calls you give us. Well, almost any call.
We're at RainRavio.com.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or a flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural,
And organic.
but strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice. And we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
Welcome back to Nerdgasm, the show everything's made up and Dave's points don't matter.
You will burn in hell.
Don't curse, Dave.
What the heck is this, 1939? So anyway, Lockdown in the chat room said those who like the first two Hellraiser films, I would recommend checking out
The Boom Comics Hellraiser, and they are really good. I've read those. Those are... I feel like cult movies always get, like, the sequels are to suck, and then they get a really good treatment in comics.
Right.
Like, because you get people who are enthusiasts, and those comics are so good. I have a couple of them.
So how accurate to the movie is it? I mean, it's
Very accurate, very accurate, very accurate.
Does it start from the beginning and retell the whole story, or does it continue?
It's like a continuation of the story. I'm pretty sure, unless I picked it up halfway through. But the art is awesome, and the story is really good. And I mean, if you're a fan of Lockdown on the chat room said, if you're a fan of the first two movies, as I like the second one more than the first one, but the Boom comics are really good. Check it out if you're a fan.
That's right. So, Joe, you're really throwing me off my game. You see, I was ready to talk. I had points made for the next hour. Now I'm thrown off. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so anyway, we're going to get into The Shining right now. Now, The Shining was probably, as I was saying in the beginning, was my introduction to horror. And it's interesting that every 5 years or so I revisit it, and it's like a different film. You know, like I pick up a different. There's times that I don't like the film as much, and there's times that I love it more than I ever did.
You're insane.
Yeah.
You're insane if you don't like that film.
That's what it is.
I will tear everybody down.
Winchell. Okay, so I can't curse anymore. Trust me, I would be right now. We were given a warning. There was a mandate. You can't curse, and I am. Really
that was probably more for
right
me.
Now. So anyway. What I've noticed over the years is, like, it was the stuff of nightmares, and even when in its sanitized version for television, there is such an impact, there's such a dreaminess, there's such a quality that film exudes, and I'm sure that it's not accurate to the book.
It's not accurate to the book at all.
To my understanding, Stephen King says he hates the movie, and any author who has his works changed that much is going to hate the movie. It's not.
Later on, he did go on in interviews later on saying when he went by, he appreciates it from a different. He doesn't hate it as much. He goes, he understands what Stanley Kubrick did. He doesn't say. I don't think he hates it as much as he said when it first came out.
Right. Well, at the time, I mean, like a lot of authors, get really resentful when their films, likewise, Clockwork Orange, another Kubrick film, Burgess hated it. At least he claims he hated it because it was changed so much.
What always happened with Stanley when he adapted books?
Right. Well, I mean, because he makes it.
Because he saw his vision. It was his.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's no longer what the author wrote. It's now what Stanley intends, which is, it's its own thing. Just as an author, yeah, it's a little hard to understand. So I mean, they even had that problem not on a Kubrick film, but with One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, also with Nicholson. So if Nicholson
that's dramatically changed less than
than these.
Yeah.
No, but my feeling, one of the things that King objected to, and it's one of my few problems that I have with the film, is that there is very little character arc for Jack Nicholson. What is his character's name? I don't know why it's escaping me at the moment.
Jack Torrance.
Jack Torrance. There's very little character arc for Jack Torrance. So in the beginning, he's doing Jack Nicholson, and he's only this much
Well,
crazy.
I think it's kind of because it's Jack Nicholson.
Wait for it. And you're right. And so he's kind of crazy to begin with, and then he ends more crazy. So if he went, I mean, it would have been nice if that he was able to put, the madness in a box and allow himself to be a normal person, and then grow into the madness. I think you would have had a much more effective character arc. Instead, you have somewhat one compromised element of the story. That aside, I mean, I love the slow burn of this film. I mean, films rarely take this much time to unfold these days. It manages to be so effective and creepy, almost like even slower than Psycho. Even like slower than Psycho, it really goes at its own speed, and it's the style that the story is told in is so unique, to the point where there's edits that, I mean, I'm surprised that this film wasn't more influential in other horror films. When there's the scene of young Danny on the bicycle, on his tricycle, going down the hallway and seeing the twins from the past. It's soundless. There's this quick shot of his screaming, no sound other than sound design. Quick flash of slow motion blood, frames of like flash images, and it's such a specific style of horror storytelling that I can't say has ever really been matched, in that way. In terms of it's such an unsettling, creepy film that even though I don't fully understand it, I can't deny just how powerful of a film it is. And I put it toward the top. It keeps moving up the list of Kubrick films for me. At one point it was sort of in the middle, but it's as scary to me now as it was to me then. Now, Joe, I know Joe's got a lot to say about it, but before we do, I mean, Nelly, you were
I've actually never seen this film before.
Really?
I'm just kidding.
So Nelly, you were saying that you saw the place that they filmed this?
Yes.
The hotel?
Yes.
No, they filmed the exteriors there.
Listen, I just, I told you before, I saw an aerial view of the hotel and everything that they shot it at, and I thought it was gorgeous, and it looked creepy from the air. But that's the only part I saw of it. I don't know if I'd ever actually want to go in, because for me, the movie played on so many different fears, the fears of isolation and of being trapped. And I think that's why it's such a brilliant film, because it doesn't play on just the fear of the supernatural. Like, there's so many elements in it.
And Joe, unleash upon us this wealth of interesting information. And
I mean, I've just seen this movie so many.
How many times do you think you've seen it?
Well over 200 times. I've seen it.
Wait, how is that even possible?
I just watched it a lot.
Do you watch it
I remember being terrified of it and was drawn to it because, and also it's Kubrick. I mean, Kubrick is arguably one of the greatest directors of all time. And I think this is one of his masterpieces. You can never say which is his greatest, but this is one of them. I actually disagree with you on one level of, I do think we see the breakdown of Jack Nicholson's character throughout. I think we do see his story arc. I think it's told in a very specific way, the way that they tell it, and the way that, and he's, Jack Nicholson is someone I've considered one of my idols. I think his resume is amazing, and I think his work is impeccable. And this is a prime example of him just being brilliant. And when he's crazy, it's not just I'm crazy. You really believe he's insane, and he's scary, and he's terrifying. And I mean, the movie is just, it's these brilliant wide shots, and you feel small. You feel small. You feel the characters. You feel how alone they are because of the direction of Kubrick of these big wide shots. There's very few close-ups in the film. It's all these big to show where they are, to show how big the hotel is exactly, and like. This movie, there's so many weird theories about this movie, about what Kubrick was doing, about what the story he was trying to tell, and some of them are outrageous, some of them make sense, but I will say this, and did you see the documentary Room 237?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I'm talking to you.
Remember that day that I gave you the documentary and said, here, Joe, here's my documentary that I like, and here's a documentary that I think you would like called Room...
See, that's a good segue. Mine was better. Anyway.
I don't get. Yes, I remember everything.
So yeah, and I actually went and saw. The funny thing about that is, one of the things that intrigued me the most in that whole. I mean, there was some of the stuff that people were like, "This is about him filming the moon landing." I'm like, okay, you're a little insane on that one. But the one thing that interested me the most was when they did that thing where they showed the film backwards and forwards at the same time. I actually went and saw that in Brooklyn.
What is that experience like? Are there other people there who
It's
paid money
creepy
to
how
watch
well
it?
it works.
But are there other people, what is the experience like of even being in the theater for that? I mean, how many people are there?
It's a lot of art types, that's what it is, but there's a lot of film people, and it's weird because it works. It's a bizarre coincidence how well that whole thing. Did you ever hear about this, Nelly?
No.
All right, there's
Never
this.
heard about going backwards.
There's a documentary called Room 237. It's all about the weird theories that film buffs and people who go to all these people who are engulfed themselves in film have about The Shining.
This is the context that you needed, because what we were saying before didn't make any sense unless you know this.
Yeah.
Continue.
And one of the things they talk about, Stanley Kubrick was rumored for years to have shot the moon landing. And it was, so he was, supposedly there was some underlying subtext in the film about that he wrote into it, because he wrote the film too, or helped write it. But one of the things they talk about is there's people always looking for new and interesting ways to show film in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And one of the ways they showed this movie was they showed it forwards, and on top of that, they showed it backwards. So they showed it one movie from beginning to end, and they over that. So it's two movies at once.
Right.
They showed the movie backwards. It's backwards and forwards, and it's weird the images that sync up. And one of the most interesting ones is there's a scene with Jack Nicholson, and the scene playing over it is when Danny sees the girls murdered in the hallway with all the blood.
Right.
He sees that vision, and it syncs up perfectly with Jack, and it's this close-up of Jack Nicholson, and it's weird how amazing the image looks. It's bizarre, and that's the thing about that film. It is a bizarre film, and it's so scary. The images are terrifying, and I think that's why I think it's such a good horror. Yeah, go ahead.
But you can't tell me that you thought that was intentional on Kubrick's part to make the same.
I'm not saying it's intentional. I'm saying that it's just weird.
Because I'm sure that Biodome played forward and backwards simultaneously might have some interesting parallels as well. It's just that no one's tried it. Now, how did you even find out where the screening was? How did if someone wants to watch?
My friend James is a big Shining fan, big Kubrick fan, so he let me know about it. Actually, shortly after I showed him the documentary, and he said we should go see this together. And I actually ended up seeing it with him. I'm like, yeah, I want to see this.
And what was really neat is that a lot of some of the theaters here on Long Island had revivals. So on Halloween, you could have actually gone to a Farmdale multiplex and seen The Shining on the big screen.
The movie's brilliant. I'm sorry, I can't.
I definitely agree with Joe and saying
it's brilliant.
As I said, I love that it plays on so many fears at once. There's so much going on.
And the same thing is a lot of hardcore Stephen King guys will say well, I don't like this movie because it's not faithful to the book.
Well, let them watch the Steven Weber version and say, wow, this film really was good, wasn't it?
I was actually going to say that. But that was the miniseries, right? That was when they basically did the book verbatim.
Yeah, which was awesome too.
But it just goes to show that would not have translated to film. It was a nice attempt, and there's aspects of that Steven Weber version that I do like, But for the most part, it's just like, this is insane. Because in the book, like, the things come alive, like, and it's so... that's different when you're reading it in a book. Because when you read that in a book, your imagination is far scarier than anything anybody can put on the screen.
I definitely agree with that.
Your personal imagination is scary. It's like the boogeyman. Your boogeyman is going to be scarier than a boogeyman you see in a movie.
Oh, definitely.
So when you read that, when things start coming alive and all this weird, haunted stuff starts happening, it's so terrifying from the book, but it looks campy from a movie standpoint. It looks stupid.
Right.
So what I believe Kubrick did was say, all right, there's a great story in here. I'm going to just chop this. I'm going to give this bare bones story about a father going insane from this house. Because the haunted elements of it are very minuscule.
Right.
And they don't play it up too much. It's there, and when it is there, it's very scary.
Right, at first you don't
the
really know if it's
scariest
just
image in
going
the world to me
crazy
is still when
or-
she was running down the hallway and she sees the guy in the suit and the bear. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen. If I ever saw that, I'd piss myself. It's so unsettling. It's so unsettling. The images, and it's Kubrick. It's classic
but
Kubrick.
also the Wendy Carlos score, which is so
Oh, that
off the
too.
wall,
The beginning score, that very deep. Yeah, I agree.
But just
with you
think
very
about like
much.
the clanging metallics, sounds. It was almost like a precursor to things like Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Where it's very, it's
Good reference,
ethereal, off the wall kinds of sounds. I mean, actually, when I was scoring my first film, I would give my composer, I would tell him to think back to moments from The Shining, because it's a very different kind of score.
That
It's
movie's
not
scored
traditional.
beautifully.
Yeah, but by the way, Timothy Packer in chat says the sequel to The Shining came out. The book
Dr.
called
Sleep.
Dr.
Yeah,
Yes.
Dr. Sleep. I
Has
actually
anyone-
read that book.
Nope.
How does it
I
compare to The
haven't read it
Shining?
It's different. That's why it's good. It doesn't. It's about Danny.
Really? Okay.
So it's not about. Obviously, it's not about Jack. Jack died, but it's about Danny. And I don't want to spoil a lot of things about it because there is something that I was like, really, but I bought it. It's a good book. Check it out. It's a great follow-up to. It's not even a follow-up to The Shining. It's just a character in his continued life. Because I honestly do think after you read that book or see that movie, one thing is like, what happens to this kid after? Good God. He's got this weird ability, like.
And do you think it would make a good film, or film comparable?
That
to
I
The
don't know
Shining?
because I actually believe that Stephen King is really hard to translate to film and TV, and I think it shows because Stephen King, an amazing writer.
Oh, yeah.
His ratio of good films to book are not very high. Like, what was that?
Even when he made his own film, even with Maximum Overdrive, this was.
I like
bad.
Maximum
I love
Overdrive.
that
I
movie.
love
I
Maximum
love that
Overdrive, but
movie.
that's based on a short story. So there
one
was.
of my favorites. One of my favorites.
Okay, but the thing
I'm not saying that there aren't good Stephen King movies. I'm saying the ratio is not. I mean, a lot of them are miniseries. Like, what was that one? The Langoliers. That was a terrible miniseries. That was
They did that-
awful.
what
That was
was
really
it,
bad.
Red Rose, too?
The story great.
But the point I was making with Stephen King is like he himself can't even make great films out of what he's done.
Because his work is so
It plays
But
with
then
your
again-
mind.
when he
Then
writes, he forces you to
to
envision.
use your mind.
Then
Yes.
again, you have Misery. There's a good handful of.
No, Misery is great. I'm saying there are good ones, but like
The ratios.
But it's
the
the-
ratios.
the
But
ratio-
Misery is also a very straightforward story. Not like
Absolutely.
The Shining. Like Kubrick did exactly what he needed to do to bring that film to a movie. I mean, I'm sorry, that book to make it into a movie because and the Steven Weber version is a perfect example. That movie is terrible. It doesn't play. It's dumb. It looks campy. Moving on.
Cutie Kids. Not that I'm like intentionally ignoring anybody in the chat room, but it seems like every time I look up, I see a different.
Wait,
comment.
what are we talking about?
Somebody's talking Cutie Kids, Nerd Girl episode 4. It was asking.
Hi, Cutiekins.
What about Under the Dome for CBS?
Not good. Bad show, in my opinion.
Didn't
Okay,
they
well, it's
already do that,
popular.
though?
It's popular,
They
but
already did that.
They marketed it. It's the longest. Like, who cares?
Nobody cares who's under the
The
dome.
acting was good, but like, it was bad. It's not good. It wasn't good. I'm sorry. I don't care.
But it's actually when it comes to
I'm not apologizing. It was a bad show.
when it comes to horror on TV, you're not as much of a fan because like
No, I am a fan of horror on TV. I am.
Walking Dead, you don't like as much as a lot of
No,
people.
but I don't like The Walking Dead because I think the comic book, I don't think it's necessarily bad. I understand why people like it. Me personally, I like the comic book better. That's it. Please don't, trolls of the internet, don't attack me for not liking Walking Dead, the TV show. But I just like the comic book better. That's it. I understand why you like it. It's just not for me. Suck it.
I'm with you on that one too, Joe.
Thank you.
Definitely with you on that one. The show.
With The Shining, now Nelly, Joe was in disagreement with me about the character arc. It's actually one of the things that Stephen King had pointed out as well, that Jack Torrance's character, yes, there is a descent into madness, but the drop off is very small. It's not. He was kind of mad to begin with, and I was saying that I felt it would have been more effective. I mean, here's a film I'm going to give like an 8 out of 10 to. And this is a film that actually a lot of people.
What film? The Shining or the Steven Weber version? 8 out of 10?
Yeah, because of little points like that.
Call yourself a filmmaker.
There's a lot of filmmakers who do not respect The Shining. There's a lot of filmmakers who kind of like.
A lot of filmmakers who are hacks.
Yeah, but they're not necessarily hacks. They just have a different of opinion. So, but The Shining, like very few people give The Shining like a 10 out of 10. I'm going to give it, so you
I give it
it
10 out of 10. I'm sorry. That
Good
movie
for you.
is brilliant. I really do.
Good for you. It's a different.
No, go ahead. Make your stupid point.
I think it's a solid horror film that would have benefited from a better character. That's just one aspect. A better, a more delineated character arc for Jack Torrance, where he starts off relatable. Because Nicholson is. I know you talk about actors who are relatable and not relatable. Ben Affleck is a very relatable actor, and sometimes, but Matt Damon is not, and things like that. But Nicholson, at that point in his career, I think became very unrelatable for me, which is fine. He's always interesting to watch.
I disagree. In that point in his career.
When he was doing The Shining and stuff like that? I mean, he's fascinating to look at, but I think that character would have benefited from, the aspect where you can relate to the guy, or you feel like...
How could you not relate to that guy? Family Guy?
I relate to him on the page. I don't relate to him in how he's playing.
I disagree on that one. I think his performance...
Did you guys like Jack Nicholson? Yeah, I did.
Jack Nicholson's one of my idols.
Awesome.
Jack Nicholson
He's
got his resume speaks for itself, sir.
It's not the point. It's not the point. I'm just saying that this.
But his ability does too. You can relate it. You can. You telling me that in even The Departed, you can't. There's nothing relatable about him.
I'm talking about this one film. I'm talking about The Shining.
I disagree.
I'm just saying. Yeah, there you go. Matt, why do you laugh at everything he does? Don't make me come back there.
You just stole one of my jokes. Congratulations.
So, okay, I think, what the heck time is it? We got, you know what?
15
Oh, what a shame, it's 11:30.
I think it's time we move
Christ,
on
we gotta
because
move
we got a lot to talk about. But before we do, there's one thing. The character...
The Shining is the best movie ever.
Okay.
And Jack Nicholson's performance is good, despite what this man says. 8 out of 10. What are you, high?
I give it a 9.
This is the crazy thing. This is the crazy thing. It's like if I'm not in 100% alignment to him, it's some kind of he must value my opinion so high that if I don't agree with him 100%, he's heartbroken. It's like, well, you agree with me mostly, but why don't you agree with me entirely? It's because
you're wrong. You're so. I'm sorry.
Okay, now let me give the actual.
When it comes to this movie, I'm very
Okay, let me give the actual scenario where this reaction is justified. This film sucked. Jack Nicholson can't act his way out of a plastic rubber bag.
And then Dave is never seen again.
He doesn't know anything.
Where can I get rubber bags?
I'm giving you a random example, and if Jack Nicholson can't act his way out of a condom, whatever you want to say,
his way out of a
and so
That's a rubber bag. I'll give you that.
okay, so and that I understand.
No, continue
your
with your
point.
joke. I'm sure it's good.
I understand your point then, but the fact of the matter is, I'm mostly agreeing with you, and you can't fathom the fact that I don't 100% agree with you. It's the nature of subjective opinions, which we as people all have. You don't give Nelly pushback on this. Okay. So now the point what I wanted to get to is the character of the other character who shares The Shining.
Daddy?
No, the other character that shares The Shining.
Isn't it Scatman
Crothers, right?
Scatman
To
Crothers.
my
I can't tell you
understanding,
his name is in the movie right now.
he's portrayed very differently in the book.
Oh, it's different.
Okay, so
As most of the characters are,
They
though.
told me to smack you.
Who told you to smack him?
Missy Heather.
Hi, Missy.
oh, you told me to.
Missy's awesome.
Missy?
I love her.
Have you talked to Missy?
I know.
Isn't she
You
hilarious?
ought to be ashamed of yourself, Missy.
Facebook and stuff. I
Ashamed.
love her.
Don't listen to this guy.
No.
You're awesome. Got your back, bro.
Oh my God, Missy, be ashamed. Forget it. You're done. You and I, we're done.
How's my hair look tonight, Missy?
Okay.
Are we going to do the rest of the movies? Are we gonna,
So no, the point I was getting, the question that I was asking is about Scatman Crothers.
It doesn't matter anymore. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go, Dave. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So
About Scatman Crothers.
basically, the idea of a co-host, Joe is a bobblehead. Is that right? So you just say something and I'm like this.
That's not a bobblehead. That's not a bobblehead. A bobblehead's like this.
Okay. Well, it depends on what angle you push the bobble at.
Look, I'm on the background.
Cool. You guys are high-fiving.
Yes!
Yeah, you got the right message. Good. Okay, so what?
Leave that up over Dave the whole time.
How do they change the character? The Scatman Crow's character, to my understanding, it was a bit different in the book.
If I remember correctly, first of all, the part was bigger. I can't see. I haven't read the book in so long. I'm trying to remember.
It's fuzzy.
But he had more to do with it. He was very kind of stagnant. I will say that he was kind of stagnantly placed out throughout the movie, and I think on purpose for Stanley Kubrick's purposes.
In the book, didn't he lead him more? Like
He did lead him more. There was more. That's what one thing it was. There was more
mentor to Danny.
mentor kind of teaching him how to use his abilities.
Yeah.
Because he had the same ones and everything like that. And those are actually interesting scenes that I kind of would have liked to have seen in the movie, but. I understand. It's kind of, like Kubrick does everything for a reason, in my opinion. There's not like, well, I did it 'cause. Everything's done for a reason. So I mean, he didn't put that in there maybe because it would have been something for it would have been too much, or I wanted to tell this very specific story. But in the book, he's much more. He talks to Dan. He comes back and forth from the Outlook a lot.
But was he dispatched quite as readily as he was in the movie? I mean, because he comes in.
He communicates with him. Throughout that, and he finally. If I'm remembering correctly, and I wish my friend James were here because James has read this book 1,000 times and could tell me specifically. But if I remember correctly, throughout when Jack goes insane, he's communicating with him.
Right.
And I think he does other things to try to help him, like he tries to get a hold of the police, but he cannot, or something like that. And he finally, I think going to the hotel is like his last option to go and help him. But I could be wrong on that one. But I know he communicates with them throughout. That's actually very good in the book when he's communicating with what's the character's name? Yeah, and through the Shining.
Yes.
Because it's just the way it's written in the book is just this kind of almost like dialogue.
Yeah.
But it's like right after each other.
line.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, it's like Danny. Yeah, like really cool. So and it's creepy.
You know, if it was remade today, which I'm sure it's only
It did get remade.
If it was remade as a feature film today, I'm sure that it would, that they would delve into that aspect of it. So, Michael Bay, we're looking forward to your remake.
That's not funny. That's
Why would
terrifying.
you even say that?
Well, it is a horror episode, So let's go to our next commercial break. When we come back, we're going to delve into the Rob Zombie films, House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. And it's going to get heated, ladies and gentlemen.
In Ravio.com.
Girls, 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 all have something to say. Some say their emotions get in the way. Some like them big, some like them skinny. Oh, girls, who's come this way? We must unite, this is the place. You don't have to show your face. Girls, I'll be a lady of today. So say what you
Hey, this is your good buddies Bruce and Disco from the Glory Days Show, which can be seen every Sunday morning starting at 10 a.m. here in the East.
We have sports highlights, movie reviews, and celebrity interviews.
We have out-of-town correspondents, Timmy the Trotter giving us horse racing tips, and at the end of every show, Mr. B does a live song.
The Glory Days Show, found only on Radio.com, broadcasting to the world. Catch us.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or a flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural.
And organic.
But strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice. And we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
Hey Beatle fans, I'm Glenn Calderon.
And I'm Lucy Diamond.
Join us every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Beatles Across the Universe.
On InRadio.com.
Broadcasting to the world.
Catch us.
First of all, chat room, stop suggesting violence against me. I don't like
They're suggesting violence against you because we read some of these violent Dave posts out.
Yeah, Wolf Boy's being real cute.
Who's Wolf Boy? What Wolf Boy?
I might love him.
Wolf Boy.
Wolf Ball. So, and Missy saying,
Hi, Missy.
I mean, you guys, seriously. I do this show for free. We're all friends here, and you act like such putzes. So obnoxious.
Putzes?
I can't curse.
Just call them a putz.
I thought you said something else. Go ahead.
So now we're going to get into the films of Rob Zombie. And
Two.
Starting, well, yeah, okay, this is true, but we're probably going to touch on a couple of the other ones as well. Now,
I think we should do these, by the way, as kind of a whole. We could kind of talk about, because these are two sequels.
Yes.
And they deal with the same characters.
Yes.
Okay.
They're very different, I agree.
Extremely.
Yeah, so, but whatever you want to do, Dave, it's your show.
It's connected. But the thing is, I was surprised. I didn't know what to expect with House of a Thousand Corpses. And
I don't think anybody did.
Yeah, and surprisingly, I think that Rob Zombie has a very good vocabulary, a very unique style of telling a story. You know, in both. Whether he's
Texas
more.
Chainsaw Massacre all over again.
I didn't finish. You know, so.
Can I finish?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing the Ross Perot thing or one of the late night pundit things. Excuse me. I wasn't finished.
That's good, Dave. That's funny.
Why must you follow everything with a freaking snarky? You know, humor,
it makes Matt laugh. I like making Matt laugh.
Let me explain something to you.
I really like making Matt laugh.
You're a jerk, okay? And you think that everything you say is just humor in your estimation is just undercut everything that Dave says.
It's so easy though,
jerk.
Dave. I'm sorry.
It's because you're not hosting. You host right now.
Sweet. Right. I'm hosting. This is great.
And my job now is to just undercut everything you say.
All right. Let's rock.
All my dreams have finally come true.
Oh, is it now, Joe? Is it? Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, the dead air is real good. Dead air is real good. You know, it's making for interesting. Yeah, just stay there vacuously as you.
All right. So as for House of a Thousand Corpses,
two very different films.
It's basically
but we can,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Wait, is that Jerry calling it? Sorry.
I mean, if you're going to talk, you can talk.
No, go ahead.
Trying to fill the dead space.
I think with House of a Thousand Corpses, I remember when this movie was coming out.
Oh, is that an attempt at humor?
No, that's an attempt at trying to bring a little more realism to the show.
You're failing. That's bad.
I remember when House of a Thousand Corpses was coming out, and I was, growing up, I was a huge Rob Zombie fan. I loved his music. I loved all of his albums. And I heard about this movie coming out called House with a Thousand Corpses, and it was a horror movie. So I was very interested to see what, his idea of horror is, and what kind of, what he would kind of bring to the table. I mean, what did you think when you saw? Like, I remember seeing the trailer for the first time, and this was like, holy crap! Like,
The trailers never really interested me, didn't pique my interest or anything.
A
But
lot
I
of
did
people
watch
say
the
that
movie
about the
because I
film.
love Rob Zombie. So I'm like,
Yeah,
all
I
right,
love
I
him
give it a
too.
try. As I said, I feel like it was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff,
Yeah.
like down to.
I said that too about it. I said it's very much like the whole
It's so
insane
much
family
like
thing.
even down to like the gas station when they first stop. The only difference is one was gas and fried chicken, the other one was gas and barbecue.
Yeah, but come on,
Like,
Sid Haig
it's
in that movie.
everything.
Sid Haig in that movie. That opening scene. I will say this about House with 1,000 Corpses: the cold opening of that movie is really good.
Okay, I can give you the opening. And I can
Come
give you
on,
Sherry Moon all day.
I can't
love
curse
Sherry
on there,
Moon.
but when he's like got the gun to his face, no, mama,
Yeah,
he
that-
just
that
keeps
was
going,
good.
and it just showed like.
I'm torn between trying
I'm
to
hosting
be,
right now,
to be
thank
a
you very
jerk
much.
to you and to add to the point.
Do you want to host again?
No, you can host
All
for
right,
a little
I'll
while.
host. Go ahead.
I'll get mine,
I never got to be in the
back a
center
little
chair
bit.
before. This is kind of nice.
I know. I often know
Yeah,
that's
you
not
have
true.
when we did our
You-
gamer episode.
You were in the center
You're
chair.
between-
No, but I never had you sitting to the left hand of me.
Yeah. Well, don't get used to it. So, but I mean, I think that even the humor of House of 1,000 Corpses is right up my alley, and I think that, I mean, the character went on to Rain. What's his name? Rain. So and so, the one that went on to The Office.
Rainn Wilson. Rainn Wilson is in this. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but I think that
Right,
like,
Rainn
a lot of
Wilson,
his stuff was funny.
He's
you know.
very unrecognizable in that. A lot of people don't know he was in that movie.
Well, because I think at the point that they saw him, you know, The
He was
Office
very
on
young,
the
too, when
air,
that
you
came
know,
out, yeah.
And he's always a very unique-looking actor. Like no one else looks like Rainn Wilson in Hollywood.
So he's more of a space guy.
Yeah. What?
It's a line from the movie.
Oh, okay. But I mean, when there's like so many moments that make, in my opinion, Rob Zombie such a. It's actually, I hate to say it, but he's a very good filmmaker. He's a very good filmmaker.
I don't mean to cut you off, Dave, but I just want to say something right off the bat about this movie, and something that's going on record of Rob Zombie saying is that he felt that the movie, number one, rushed, that he didn't really know what he was doing at the time. He kind of, because Universal kind of signed him when the script was half done. So he was kind of pressured to finish it, and he says, I look back on it, I always felt like the film was kind of unfinished. So that's just what he's still, continue with what you were saying.
By the time you get to the end of the film, it does feel a little bit unfinished, but throughout, I mean, it's this fast-moving, quirky, unique storyline.
It's psychedelic, very psychedelic too.
Like a fresh voice from a film, but I mean, there are parallels to Texas Chainsaw
So
Massacre.
many parallels. But I did like the fact that he added those characters, though. He did add a lot more characters in there.
I'd like to know that what film.
And character development more.
The plot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre seems to be archetypal for a lot of horror films that follow. I've seen a lot of films that follow that.
This
same
was
kind
the
of
only
trajectory.
like rip-off that I liked, though.
Right. Okay.
Because I do like House of 1,000 Corpses. I think it's flawed, but it's not bad. Continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, but you know, there's a scene when one of the characters' fathers gets killed. The guy from Saving Private Ryan. You remember, like the dad from Saving Private Ryan.
Oh my God! It is the dad from Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, no, it was Private Ryan. It grown up, right? So
Yeah,
and he gets,
I didn't know that. It's
he gets shot, and what does he? Rob Zombie as a filmmaker does something so unique that I hadn't seen any other filmmaker do. When he is dying and his life flashes before his eyes, Rob Zombie literally visualizes his life flashing before the eyes.
I remember that.
Such there's a lot of times throughout the film, surprisingly to me, that I thought to myself, this is a strong voice. I don't know. I mean, I didn't get through all of Halloween or Halloween 2. I haven't seen Salem.
I know everybody hates it, but me.
but I don't. I'm wondering if there was the same level of inventiveness that he brought. I mean, even Devil's Rejects, which I consider a stronger film, I think was less daring in terms of its filmmaking style.
Oh, House of 1,000 Corpses is extremely daring. Like there was at that point at least there was no horror film like that at all. And I challenge anybody to say and I'm not talking like in the 70s or anything like that. I'm talking at that time. There was nothing that it was very, if I can say anything about House of 1,000 Corpses, it was in your face.
Oh yeah.
It was, and I think you have to applaud Rob Zombie for that because I think he kind of went with that mentality of I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm going to be right in your face the whole time. And I think that's why the movie, at least when it came out, was so effective.
Well, yeah.
You know?
But the thing is, the delay that I think that they actually.
What the hell was that?
I got distracted for a second.
Why? Because I spit?
Yes. Don't point attention to it. Nobody at home.
No, because if you were me, I would have made a joke about that.
I'm not like that. See, I don't think,
This is why I'm host now. This is why I'm host now, Dave.
See, people spit when you get passionate. You know, it didn't matter that.
Oh, look at that. You can see our viewer rating dropping right now.
There's a little pool of spit right here. That's okay.
You're about 10 seconds too late.
Okay, well, I can't.
My pool of spit tastes great.
All right, so now, Nelly, other than the fact that it's too reminiscent of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, can you think of anything that's legitimately bad about the film?
I mean, the editing's a little choppy.
As I said, for me, it's the rip-off aspect of it.
Okay, that's
it's like down to the
one component.
Yeah.
You know,
Can I just offer one thing about that? And I do believe, I said that about the film too. I said, this seems like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I will say they put a little bit of a different spin on it.
Well, they said I
thought the characters.
Characters.
One of the things that I always wanted about Texas Chainsaw Massacre was I was like, I wish each character had their own personality. And in the first, they did and they didn't. There was, like obviously Leatherface had his own personality, but there was also Grandpa, but they never gave each character kind of their own moment. I believe House of 1,000 Corpses did. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I definitely agree that happened. But that's why I was going to say the parts that I did like was the fact that he actually developed the other characters and stuff. And just like even like the end scenes and stuff. I don't know if we want to talk about all
My
that.
favorite shot in horror film history is in this movie.
Oh, yeah?
In the first one.
In the first one. I just love this one shot where it's like a close-up of one of the characters, and that's when they're at the end, and they're running through the tunnels, and it's like a half close-up, and you see the person come behind them, and they're just standing still, and their face is very active. And I remember thinking that's one of the most terrifying shots I've ever seen in my entire life. The movie's very innovative, and I think that's why it falls short, because I think he tried a lot of things that just didn't work.
But then there's a Dr. Evil character which never came back in the follow-up.
No, it was the Dr. Satan character was supposed to be. We'll get into that in a minute.
So, because it's about the visual of Dr. Satan is one of the great images of that film.
Yeah, the climax, the third act of that film.
But I guess, between the first film and the second film, Zombie really streamlines his storytelling, which, there's a pro to that, there's an advantage of it. When I first saw Devil's Rejects, and I guess we can kind of segue over to Devil's Rejects.
I love Devil's Rejects. He's not laughing at you, Dave. Don't worry about it.
If Matt heard me, I'm not sure. So in Devil's Rejects, not only did the tone shift, but like the look of the film shift. Basically, everything felt like it was.
Matt, can we get a Devil's Rejects picture in the back?
Everything about the film felt like a different director, pretty much.
You're awesome, Matt.
It winds up being.
I'm sorry.
It winds up being a very. I'm distracted. I'm sorry, Nelly. What did you think of Devil's Rejects?
I loved the Devil's Rejects. How about that? I liked it so much better than House of 1,000 Corpses.
What about, the thing is, what I was going to say is that when I first saw Devil's Rejects, I had seen
the trailer alone attracted me to this movie.
Sherry Moon.
And it was supposed to be
Sherry Moon, zombie. Can we just talk about her?
It was supposed to be a direct-to-DVD. It was supposed to be a direct-to-DVD sequel. And because the people at Lionsgate were so happy with what they saw, they decided to bump it up into a theatrical. But my first reaction was that I had seen House of 1,000 Corpses a few times because I liked the style, liked the tone, and then when I first saw
different.
Right, when I first saw Devil's Rejects, I was kind of thrown off. I didn't know what to think about it. At first, I think that I might have preferred House of 1,000, and it was only on second viewing that I saw just how. You're right there, Joe.
I'm just reading. I just say we haven't been paying attention to the comments a little bit. I'm just seeing if there's anything.
Yeah, so when I first saw it, it was that little bit of I had to get acclimated a little bit.
Somebody was taking a shot at me, debating whether to feed Dave snarky one-liners.
No, it's just
they were going to hook you up to the young
Dave, ask him how
machine.
smarter person would analyze this.
They're doing all kinds of things to you guys in there.
Universal then dropped him. That's a funny story. Did you ever hear the story about why? Because he got picked up by Universal and he got dropped. What was the other? Some other company picked him up, and it wasn't. What ended up? MGM picked him up for House of 1,000 Corpses because this film was in development hell for the longest time. The first movie. This is a very funny story. It goes. He said Universal dropped the film because they wanted to give it an NC-17 rating, and then in an interview when he got picked up by MGM, he said. The interviewer said something to it's like, oh, Universal said they dropped your film because it had no morals. And he goes, yeah, luckily MGM picked us up. Guess they have no morals. Ha ha ha. MGM didn't take that very funny, so they ended up dropping the film a week later after the interview, and then Lionsgate picked them up. I thought that was a funny story. But on to Devil's Rejects.
But it would have been interesting to see had MGM kept the film if it would have found its audience, because neither of these
I don't
films
think it
ever
would have
really-
actually, because somebody asked me that question recently, actually, and I think because Lionsgate kind of cemented itself. Do you want to sit back here? So you can, okay.
No.
Lionsgate kind of cemented itself as a horror distributor in the last couple of years.
Definitely.
I think they distribute the Saw films. And they weren't for a long time, so they kind of found their niche with distributing horror films, and I think they distributed almost every one of Rob Zombie's movies. At least I know they did the first two, because Lionsgate also distributed Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
So I think they found their niche, and I think it wouldn't have got the same reaction even if Universal distributed it. I don't think it would have made the money that it did. It didn't make a whole lot, but by a horror movie standard, it did pretty well. Especially the second film, Devil's Rejects made a very good box office.
Well, the whole thing with the Devil's Rejects too, it's like you feel more for the characters. Like this one,
That's
you're rooting.
the brilliance
You're rooting
of
for the characters.
film.
With the last one, you're like,
so
these crazy
many of
people
my
are
friends
killing everybody.
don't like that movie because they're like, well,
I love it.
I'm
Because it
invested
made
in
me
the
change
bad
my
guys,
whole
and I'm
view.
like, don't you think that my friend Dan, one of my best friends in the whole world, he's a great film buff. He was like, I don't like the movie because they make you invest in the villain. And I said,
That's why
I
I
was
like
like,
the movie.
but that's the brilliance of the film.
It's such an anti-hero film, though.
It is an anti-hero film because, oh God, I have to say this. In the movie, the standard way to do that movie in like the 70s or the 80s or like early 90s would be to have those characters be as bad as they are but without the sympathy, and then make the sheriff character, who was played brilliantly by William Forsythe, the William Forsythe character, to be the big hero. Rob Zombie took that formula and he turned it on its head and said, all right, I'm gonna make this guy crazy. And there's this brilliant, one of my favorite scenes in Devil's Rejects is when they figure out that they're using Marx characters' names, the Marx Brothers characters' names, and he calls them the expert, and he makes fun of Elvis. And the only time you see it, up until that point, you see the sheriff character get visibly mad is when he insults Elvis Presley. And he ends the scene, he says, I can't curse in there, but he's like, the screw Groucho. Like, it's this brilliant scene, and it's so depth into the character. He's a very calm character. Even when he kills Karen Black, the grandmother Firefly.
Mother Firefly.
She wasn't Karen Black anymore.
No, it was Karen Black was in the first
It
one.
was her character. It was
Mother Firefly.
whoever that actor, whoever
Was
the
it Karen
actress
Black?
was. No, Karen Black got replaced because she wanted too much money. So when
Karen Black was in the first movie.
She was in the first one, and then
Who was the second one? It was another great horror movie.
It was another icon, yeah.
Another icon, but even when he killed her, he was very calm about it. And then when he insults her, it's just, and also there's another great sequence. This movie's great. I don't care what anybody says. This movie's great. There's another great sequence when they go to it's the horror farm.
Oh, wait, Frontierland. Something big Frontierland.
What was the guy from Dawn of the Dead?
Ken Foree.
Ken Foree. They go to
it's
his
the
character's farm. It's it's a prostitute house.
and Michael Berryman's in that.
Michael
scene,
Berryman,
right?
yeah, there are a lot of great horror icons in it, and there's a great sequence where they're partying, they're doing drugs, but they're having a great time, and then there's just William Forsythe in his house alone, speaking Bible verses into the mirror, and it's a great quick cut, and it shows
Leslie Easterbrook.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. It was Leslie
Love you,
Easterbrook, and a great performance by her as well. And that's another thing about the movie: solid performances all around.
And you can tell Zombie is such a fan of these kinds of films that he's looking for people that he wants to see again. You remember that guy from all the Clint Eastwood 8 movies from the 70s?
Yeah.
Was even in there? I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, he was in the westerns.
Right. And so,
He's in there too.
You can tell, like, just the fact that he brought Sid Haig back into the scene. The guy in Sid Haig's reemergence has everything to do with Rob Zombie.
Oh, definitely.
So I have to, say that
Rob Zombie and Quentin Tarantino.
Tarantino didn't really hire Haig, though.
Yes, he did. He's in a bunch of his movies.
Are you sure about that?
I'm very sure. He's in Jackie Brown. He's in Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. I think he's in Death Proof. And I think he actually shows up in Inglourious Bastards. I'm not sure on, but I know for a fact he's in Jackie Brown, and I know he's in Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. He's not.
Okay. But one of the things I was going to say about Devil's Rejects, for as strong as for as much of a cult following that this film has, when it came out, it only grossed $17 million. It wasn't.
That's good money for a horror film.
Well, when horror.
And it also found its
60,
audience.
70.
It also did very well on DVD.
Yeah. So I'm going to find out.
But like the opening sequence, the opening shootout to that film is
And the color
it's shot so differently too. It's shot so differently from the traditional action movie shootouts. It's much and that's like the key word I can say about this film is gritty. This film is
definitely.
very gritty. And you said before, let's take a minute to praise the acting from Sherry Moon Zombie,
Love her so
who
much.
so many of my friends are like, oh, she's just in the movie, but I think she's a fine actress. I think, I always praised her work and just don't attack me. I always liked her work in Halloween, playing Michael Myers' mother, and I really liked her performance in Devil's Rejects. It's so, it's just, she's a fine actress, and Sid Haig is doing what he does best, and he's just owning the scene.
You were right about Sid Haig and the Tarantino films.
And then, thank you. And then there's also Bill Moseley as Otis, who he's got one of my favorite moments in the movie.
But you notice like the evolution. Everybody.
Are you still a jerk?
Everybody upped their game between the first and the second film.
Yeah.
Sherry Moon went from playing a very cartoony character in the first one to playing a very down-to-earth character in the second one.
Down to
and
Mars
also
is more
Bill
like
Moseley,
it. Yeah.
I think there's a big evolution between the two Bill Moseley.
Oh, there is. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because
There definitely is.
in the first one, it's almost like he wasn't sure what he was going to do, and then the second one is so clearly defined what he's doing.
And they talk about. I think a horror movie should make you uncomfortable.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this. You know what?
Go ahead, cut me off.
Money. Sorry, but one of the my
I'm the
favorite
host
films
now,
is it's a thriller. At the end of the day,
It's a half and half, I think.
Yeah,
I would
it
say
feels
half and
more
half.
like thriller to me. Because it
It's
definitely
very
doesn't go.
The ending is very
fast.
thriller-esque, and the ending is awesome. But
Well, the
I
whole
think
thing
horror
is to
movies
feel
should
like you're on
always
the
be
run.
uncomfortable. There should be moments where you as an audience member feel uncomfortable. And Devil's Rejects is one of the most harrowing scenes, or at least segments in horror, is when the hotel room stuff. And that is so unsettling. Like, those lines are so unsettling, and it's just, oh my God, like it's so very dark, and it's so real, and I remember watching the movie in the theaters and sitting there during that scene, like, oh man, I wanted to leave. I'm like, this is just so unsettling.
And there's a
what
scene
they're
that made
doing.
me angry too. It's like when
He
she
sticks the
escapes.
gun down her pants, like it's unsettling, and I think that's a mark of a good horror film is when you can actually get the audience to. And one of my friends said the same thing. They're like, I hate watching this scene. It's very unsettling.
But it's also like that scene physically made me mad when she escapes and when
It's
she gets
supposed to,
her
and I
thing.
think and she gets hit by the truck.
Yeah, I got man, for so many reasons.
She's
I
just
got mad.
hanging there.
There's a point.
But they treated so. They're like, oh, they're having that conversation. What are you doing? Just get the skin on her face. This woman's going insane next to them. They're having a normal conversation. Like, what brilliant writing and acting on the part. They're just like, what do you got against Charlie? I don't like him. This woman's just crying next to him the whole time. Like, they just killed everybody she knows.
Timmy Packer in chat room says
God.
that Rob Zombie said, he said art is not safe when asked by Bill Moseley about that scene. What? Oh, I'm not understanding that. Guys, you get that?
What do you say?
Rob
Zombie said art is not safe when asked by Bill Moseley about that scene. I know what he's talking about. He's talking about when they were doing that scene. I mean, it was on a hot set. It was it was a long day, and Bill Moseley Rob Zombie went up to Bill Moseley. Was like, "Hey, Bill, how you feeling?" And he said, "Rob, honestly, man, this scene is bumming me out. Like, and it's hard to do. Coming from an actor's standpoint, I understand where they come from. It's hard to be that horrible and sadistic. Like, I've met Bill Moseley. Bill Moseley is one of the nicest people in the whole world. At least he was to me. And for him to play that kind of harrowing character is just kind of like, I understand that whole, like, this is like, it's bumming me out. It's making me not feel good right now. Like, I'm not this person. It's just, we're doing so many takes of this, and he's probably physically drained." And then Rob Zombie said to him, "Art is not safe."
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was a piece of direction.
But at the same time, you notice I'm sure that this performance hit him a lot harder because in the previous film, it was kind of more of a two-dimensional performance. And in this one, it seemed like a real guy. And if he's playing a real guy,
Once again, I think
really
he was
good
playing a character from an unfinished script. But you're right, it was, yeah.
And because he's playing this real guy, it's like you're living this, you become this.
I would put Devil's Rejects up there, by the way, just as probably one of them. Yeah, if I had a top 100 horror films, that's definitely in there, and it's probably in the high 50s.
And there are moments of that Rob Zombie, very unique filmmaking. Like his choice of music is certainly one of a kind. No other horror filmmaker.
It opens with Midnight Rider from
what he
the
opens
Doobie
and
Brothers,
closes
not
with.
the Doobie Brothers.
What he closes with.
What he opens and closes with.
Freebird is the closing song.
Yeah,
which is that ending climax is beautiful.
The thing is, like,
I'm sorry, I just love this movie.
No, it absolutely is. I mean, it's a terrific filmmaking. But the thing is, I was on the fence, like when I was watching the film, and as we were driving off into the sunset, I said, if they get away with this, I don't. If they get away with this, I don't like this film. If they don't get away with this, I like this film. If they get away with this, I don't like this film. And then when that ending happened, the whole thing fell together in place.
It made sense.
Yeah.
Because you realize at that point, this is the only ending for these characters.
Yeah, definitely.
Because as much as you're invested in them, and as much as you're like, oh man, like, and because you grow to like these characters.
Yeah, what else?
They have these moments they have these family moments. There's that scene where they're in the car. It's just a normal scene where they're like, I want some ice cream. Ain't no ice cream in your future. It's a brother, sister, and a father arguing in the car. Yeah. I think I want some Tutti Frutti. Like, and it's a great scene, and you get invested. But you realize, like, by the end of that movie, where they're driving away, and it looks like for a second they're going to get away with it.
Yeah.
For just a second.
Yeah. And I was mad.
And the thing about it is, you realize at that point it's like. Because Rob Zombie cements this film, and this one more than the last one, he cements it. What's that? I'm sorry, Matt?
We have Daniel on the phone, so we're going to get to him.
All right, let me just wrap this up, what I'm saying. My whole point is, you realize by the time that film comes to an end, there's no way these characters, they can't get away with this.
I realize
they've done too much, and they know who they are, they're going to get caught. And it's not going to be good.
I realized something that, until you pointed that out, I didn't realize it. Like,
no, they have to go out shooting. That's who they are.
When you're a filmmaker, and the ending's a little reminiscent of Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, and all that.
Yeah, but you can say that about a lot of films.
Sure, but that's the point. The ice cream scene, I didn't realize until you just reminded me of it, was an influence on one of my scenes in Cesarano's Deadly Xmas. Because in Deadly Xmas, there's a scene where Evil Santa is treated like kindness by his wife.
Shameless plug by Dave Campfield.
Well, I have to reference, but the thing is, like, I made a feature film
by his movie. It's on Amazon Instant Watch, and
but the thing is, like, you notice the parallel because you just rewatched.
Yeah, I did. I just rewatched it.
I didn't even realize that's in the back of my head.
You just subconsciously did it.
Subconsciously, that was not a conscious.
It's a good scene.
It's not a conscious, but that's exactly where.
But it's a good scene because I think it was intentional for Rob Zombie to be like, okay, you're gonna like these characters, but you're gonna realize there's only one ending for them.
Right, definitely.
But I believe there's one last comment from Dave Campfield.
Well, one last thing, because we have a caller, a very special guest.
Yes,
but one last thing is Sid Haig. I saw Sid Haig at a convention that we were both at, and.
Do you remember you?
You're Dave Campfield from, even though he doesn't talk like that. The voice that he does as Captain Spaulding is not.
You mean how he actually talks? Because that's how he actually talks.
So I asked him how Rob Zombie thought of him. What did Rob Zombie see him in?
You must appreciate real questions like that every once in a while.
It's more like, what is it like to kill people? But the question I had from him is like, what did Zombie see you in? And he said that when Zombie was a kid, he saw him in Jason of Star Command.
Yeah, he told me about this.
In Jason and Star Command, he was the villain.
Wasn't he doing a British accent in that too?
Right. Yeah, he was very dignified, and I was realizing that Sid Haig probably has a wealth of characters that he's capable of playing that he doesn't get to play. But it was interesting that Zombie saw in this very classy kind of villain this whole other character and thought of Haig for it. It shows you, I think, real film.
I think he recognized his range because I think Sid Haig has a bigger range than a lot of people give him credit for. I'm not saying he's the greatest actor of all time, but. He's got a range, and I think he needs to be recognized for that. Now,
leave me alone, woman. That whole scene when he's.
Oh, Jesus Christ, woman! Last night.
That's one of the greatest scenes. That's one of the greatest scenes.
What'd you have, a nightmare? Yeah, 50-50. But enough about our stupid,
paying love to.
We have somebody that is going to call in. Who is this that's calling in?
We have Daniel is our guest caller. Daniel Kelly.
Now, who's Daniel Kelly?
Daniel Kelly runs
nice background.
And Scares website.
Right.
Now, Daniel, how would you describe this website?
Hey guys, hey Dave, Joe,
Hi, guys.
Nelly.
Hey.
Basically, I started a Facebook page. I have my own website because I write novels, and then I always blogged about horror movies and stuff, and I write gay horror novels. So I decided, there's a market for there's gay fans of horror. So and as a gay guy, I guess I kind of look at horror differently because when I write my blogs, I'm always noticing things that other people don't seem to notice. And so I started a Facebook page that was targeted towards gay guys.
I was teasing you about your logo until you pointed out a straight guy drew that for you.
Oh yeah, there it is. That's my logo. One of my straight friends. He's an art director type guy, so he does anytime I need something, he helps me. So we kind of came up with the idea together, So I guess obviously it's a boy on a young smooth guy.
It's a boy and a bear.
And a bear on the right.
It seems like a horrible accident has just been happening. It's just happened with two. What is the word if your butt's been cut off? Your head's cut off, it's decapitation. Your butt's cut off, it's debutation.
Assiccation.
Assiccation.
So now, Daniel, I want to hear your thoughts, your bullet points on the 4 films that we reviewed today, starting with Hellraiser.
I'll start with Hellraiser. Okay. Well, all right, Hellraiser. Actually, I did a whole blog on the entire Hellraiser series. Like
the entire Hellraiser series,
every single movie, and I burnt myself out on them. But
I commend you for that because some of those later films are hard to watch.
I know I do it. I watch mostly crappy movies anyway, so I'm kind of used to it.
Interestingly, he found me because he found Cesar Renato's Deadly Xmas.
He told me he thought
Yes,
you were
I
gay.
actually saw it on Facebook. Hilarious, your little video.
I'm sorry, Daniel. Go ahead.
Not that every movie's crappy, Dave. Sorry about that.
I like this guy.
But the thing with Hellraiser for me is that the whole philosophy for the whole concept seems that the idea is that if you seek pleasure, you're never satisfied, so you keep going to more extremes to be stimulated, and inevitably you're looking for pain. So, and that's when you go to hell. But then all of a sudden, the way to get back out of hell and become immortal again is to inflict pain on other people. So that, what's weird to me about that is that you have like a gay horror writer creating this, and like he seems to have something against sex and S&M and stuff, because there's something very S&M about the Hellraiser movies,
Something?
Oh, definitely.
There's something about it.
And I mean the first movie, like the leading chick, not the young, not the daughter, but the mother, like she kind of looks like remember when Frida from ABBA did I Know There's Something Going On?
Oh my God,
she kind of looks like her with the hair and everything.
Yeah.
So like basically she's bringing home men with the promise of sex and handing them off to another guy. So like that, there's like a, Clive Barker wasn't really out when he wrote that story and stuff.
No,
but,
he wasn't. He didn't come out for years
but
later.
there's like a little something going on there. You know what I mean? Because
that's a very good analysis. I'm just gonna commend you on that. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I got for
Why
those
am
are
I
the kinds of
featured
things
as a
I
gay
watched
interviewer, by the way?
I saw it originally as when I was a teenager, but then when I watch it again as an adult, I'm seeing it from a different perspective. Things I wouldn't have noticed when I was younger. So that's really it about Hellraiser. That's all I got for that one.
How do you feel about the Shining?
The Shining, I kind of, Joe, I kind of feel the way you feel. Like when I saw the movie, the television one with Rebecca De Mornay and Steven Weber, those topiaries that are like running down the hill and stuff. I just can't picture it. It worked in the book for me, and it just didn't work in the movie.
That's because your imagination is better than anything that any filmmaker can put on the screen. So.
It's also, it's still limited in terms of budget. That can't help.
Yeah, but at the same time, even if it was a big budget thing, and I'm glad you agree with me, is what you read on the page and what you visualize in your head is scarier than anything that you could possibly.
Yeah, I mean, the part when Danny's in the playground and he's imagining them moving closer, it kind of worked. But then when you're supposed to have these big topiaries running down the hill on fire, and I was like, oh, come on, this is ridiculous. And personally, I just love the maze.
I agree with you on that one.
I love the maze in The Shining. That's the fact that that's not in the book is hard to believe, because it's so amazing.
Yeah, the maze isn't in The Shining. It's in the book.
But as far as gay,
that bit of gay of that notion that. I think it was in room 437 that Jack Nicholson's character Torrance is actually looking at a Playgirl magazine when he's waiting for
he's
an interview.
in the lobby. He's looking at Playgirl, and then when he sees the guys in the room, I mean, when they show the scene in the room, he doesn't see them, but when they show the scene in the room with the two guys, you assume it's a guy under that bear costume because it's a big person, and basically it's a bear. It's a bear with another guy.
Look at how this ties in to you as a guest today.
The scariest moment of my life.
And it's not sticking out.
No,
If you look
because I
closely,
don't want
it's not
anybody in a
sticking
bear
out.
costume to accost me.
And lastly, I think, what about the two Rob Zombie films?
All right, so like I'm kind of in the minority because I much prefer House of 1,000 Corpses, because to me what I like about it is that it's like, you know, they just go into this hellish situation that is trippy and really doesn't make sense, and that's what's so terrifying about it. And I think, you know, based on what Nelly was saying, I think that's where it changes from Texas Chainsaw, is that there's supernatural elements to it. And it, you know,
That's a good point. I didn't even thought of that.
It's much darker when they go down into that tunnel. That's like terrifying beyond anything. Like she has a chance to escape in Texas Chainsaw, but once you get down into that hell, and
There's no way out. Yeah.
that was just terrifying to me, you know. And I don't know. There's nothing really gay about it, but Karen Black is kind of a gay icon for some reason. She was a drag queen in the movie.
Is she really?
She actually played transitioned transgender person in this movie, Come Back to the Five and Dime. Jimmy Dean.
No,
it was a play originally, and then Mark Patton from Elm Street 2. Gay. He's like pretty much a gay horror icon these days.
Really?
Elm Street 2 is like the gayest. He plays the character as a young person, and then he transitions through the story and becomes Karen Black. So she kind of has a gay following.
Karen Black?
Sarah's in that movie, and Kathy
Wait, what was
Bates.
that movie called again? I'm sorry, Daniel. What was that movie called again?
It's called Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean.
Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean.
Yeah, Cher is in it. Kathy Bates is in it. These are all like their first
this
movies.
is a gay movie.
It's their
And
first
so you don't
movie.
have anything gay to say about Devil's Rejects either?
All right, The Devil's Rejects is, I like I said, unlike everybody else, I don't like The Devil's Rejects because even I don't. To me, it's not even actually a horror movie. Dave, I think you said it's more like a thriller, and it's more like, you know, it's about the family is now the supernatural element is completely gone. They're just another like hillbilly redneck family, whatever that is. It's all the same to me because I'm terrified of rednecks and
Don't be
hillbillies.
so biased.
But it's not really a horror movie to me. It's just, you know, them torturing people, and I miss the aspects, you know, the supernatural aspects that there was this deep underground thing going on in House of 1,000 Corpses, and they just completely dropped it, you know.
Yeah, they did. Doctor, what were you saying about Dr. Satan, Joe?
I'm glad we have a fourth on for this. Yeah, they did actually. Originally, Rob Zombie did a throwback because he doesn't really do many throwbacks to the first movie, and I think he wanted the second one to be dramatically different than the first one, but. Originally, he did have a scene where they had Dr. Satan in custody, and he was in. Rosario Dawson was in it. She played the nurse that he actually killed, and Dr. Satan was actually like in the ICU or something like that, and they did a throwback to it, and they said it was the only one we could find. They actually mentioned the tunnels and everything like that, and. It's a good scene, and I'm actually looking back on it. I kind of wish they kept it in because I am a fan of the first film. As flawed as the first film is, I think the first film is flawed.
Is it deleted scenes? Is Dr. Satan in the deleted scenes?
Yeah, he's in the deleted. If you get the DVD, Daniel, do you have the Devil's Rejects DVD?
I didn't buy it because once I saw it once, I never wanted to see it again.
If one of your friends has the Devil's Rejects DVDs, there's a deleted scene where they have Dr. Satan, and they go to the hospital, and they're going to question him, and he ends up killing. Rosario Dawson plays the nurse. He rips her throat out.
That's it. Now that scene sounds cool, but when you see it, do you think that if it was in the movie would feel like they just kind of forced that in there to
That's why
tie up
Rob
the
Zombie
loose
took
ends?
it out. He said it felt forced.
Yeah.
But I think that's open to interpretation. So I don't know. You know, you're a horror buff. I'm sure you'd have your own opinion about it.
I think we've hit the end of our show. We've hit the end of our 90-minute run. So our host tonight, Joe Winchell, will take us out.
Daniel, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. I hope we can have you on again. You're very insightful.
All right, thanks, guys.
No problem.
Bye, Dan.
Anyway, my name is Joe Winchell, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at a mirror. To my right is
Nelly Nells.
Thank you. My left
Did you
is.
forget my name?
Former host of Nerdgasm before he had a mental breakdown after mistreatment, Dave Campfield.
And I'm your current host, and better, to Nerdgasm. I'm Joe Winchell, and I will see you next week, where I will probably not be hosting.
Bye, guys.
Review.